Anytime we have a discussion about leadership, we have to talk about the concept of power. And when we're dealing with leadership, there are two types of power that come into play. There's what we call position power and personal power. So let's spend a minute talking about the two. First is position power. Now, another description of position power might be rank or authority. Position power is the power that an organization says you have. Okay, you're the CEO, you're a supervisor, you're an operations manager because the company says you are. Okay, and this represents a name badge, right? You might have a name tag that says OM. Okay, that's the power that the organization says you have. Now, there is a danger associated to leading with position power. Someone who leads with position power uses their rank, uses their authority to try and lead someone. Well, that can come across as very intimidating, threatening, negative, and it might sound like, do this because I'm your boss and I told you to. In fact, some of us as parents, we're guilty of this, right? We tell our kids to do something and they say why, and we say because I'm your dad and I said so. Okay, that's position power, okay? And 90% of the time, 95% of the time, position power is not the best way to lead someone. And there's another term that I want to talk about that's called seagull management. Have you ever heard of the seagull manager? The seagull manager is the manager that swoops in, makes a bunch of noise, poops on everyone, and then flies away. Okay, now that's kind of facetious, right? But have you ever had a supervisor or a manager that the only time you hear from them is when you're in trouble? The only time they talk to you is to tell you that you messed up again. That is a seagull manager, and that comes from most often that position power type leadership. It's risky. And I want to come back and talk about one of the main risks of position power in just a minute. But first I want to talk about personal power. Now, personal power is power that is earned. And here's a question I like to ask. Who decides how much power we have? Some people, their initial response is, well, we do. But that is not the case. Other people decide how much power we have. Other people decide if we are worth following. I cannot say, I'm going to go in and influence Bob today. It doesn't work that way. Bob decides whether or not he will follow me. Bob decides whether or not I will influence him. So personal power is earned. And personal power is way more effective than position power. Because when people follow the personal power leader, they're doing it because they want to. They're doing it out of respect for that leader or a genuine desire to please that leader. They like that leader. Personal power is way more effective than position power. And here's the interesting thing. People with personal power more than likely wind up with position power. But the really good leaders continue to lead with that personal power. You will get way more accomplished leading with personal power than with position power. Now, I wanted to talk about one of the main risks of leading with position power. And this is a term we call sabotage. We all know what sabotage means, right? You watch a movie. Sabotage is when you blow up the enemy's train or you put a bomb under their submarine or whatever. I'm not talking about that kind of sabotage. But I want to give you an example of sabotage. This is a real life example that happened at one of our sites. There was a supervisor who was very much the position power leader. Death Star management, right? Seagull manager. Very much ruled her team with an iron hand. Fear, intimidation, that was kind of her MO. Well, at this site, this particular month, there was a contest for supervisors. It was based on attendance. And the particulars of it were that the supervisor that had the best attendance for the month would get $300. Well, this particular supervisor at her weekly team meeting says to her team, "All right, guys, there's a contest for us supervisors. The supervisor with the best attendance for the month gets $300. Right now, I'm tied for first. Don't any of you mess it up for me." So what do you think happened? You know what happened. These people on her team made sure she would not win. They made sure she would not win. So at the end of the month, she was tied for first. She finished second from the bottom. She was sabotaged by her own team. And why is that? It's because they didn't have respect for her. They did just enough to keep her off their back. That's the danger of position power. People will do just enough to keep you off their back and nothing else. So remember when we talked about discretionary effort? You don't get any discretionary effort if you're leading from position power. Personal power is a much more effective way to lead and will get much better results than leading with position power.